A bad dream worries residents of Moscow's suburbs, and yesterday there were stones from the sky after a powerful explosion occurred at the Zagorsky Optical and Mechanical Plants factory in Sergiev Posad, near the Russian capital. Good afternoon, dear world. Henry Keane is here, yet another episode of bringing hard truth in easy terms for the whole free world, directly from Ukraine. Explosion on an optical and mechanical plant near Moscow. According to the propaganda media, Russian propaganda, the human factor was the cause. It is quite strange. Last year, explosions in Crimea and ammunition warehouses were mainly caused by that lens effect. And here, at the optical factory, it was the human factor. By the way, if you didn't know, it is very profitable to store fireworks in the warehouses of the optical factory. That's a very nice idea. According to the official version, fireworks caused the explosion. Not shells that people found in the neighborhoods, but fireworks. Shells are an optical illusion as far as the plant was optical. I hear a lot of questions. Did Ukrainians do that? Well, most of Russia's internal troubles are natural, the consequences of an external full-scale war started by the Kremlin. All the resources of the Russian Federation are meant now to be sacrificed in the name of the continuation of its criminal aggression against Ukraine. Meanwhile, infrastructure and security equipment, quality and maintenance in Russia rapidly degrade, of course. Mass conversion of Russian enterprises to meet the military demand for weapons and ammunition, of course, with an obvious violation of casual production safety standards and norms. Sanctions imposed on the Russian Federation for its aggression have shown that, apart from international cooperation, the Russian military industry poses a threat to the Russians themselves. Russia last year experienced a record number of explosions, leading to dozens of deaths and thousands of injuries, as reports Russian independent news website ZNPP, in turn citing a report by the Emergency Situations Ministry. Overall, 83 blasts ripped through residential buildings, warehouses, cars and mines in 2022. At least 55 died and more than 10,500 people were injured last year as a result of the record number of explosions. Over the past decade, no single year had witnessed more than a total of 500 people injured and killed. In a sign of a domestic toll of Russia's war in Ukraine, 55 out of 83 recorded explosions involved bombs, rockets, mines or grenades.
An unidentified drone over Russia is an impeccable symbol of the present time. Putin's clan is increasingly active and persistent in bringing the war to its own territory. A correct and reasonable strategy that will plunge Russia into a salutary political restructuring, accelerate the destruction of the chauvinistic clan, and finally lock the country in a traditional internal civil war. Mikhail Podolyak, advisor to the head of the office of the President of Ukraine, on Twitter.
So whether Ukrainians or not, but one thing is clear. In conditions of oppressive Putin's regime and obvious dictatorship, sabotage often remains the only way to express disagreement with the pernicious political course of the Kremlin. For Russians, and more to come. More, Mr. Putin. Way more. On the night of August 10th, the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, occupied by Russians, lost power. The connection to the main external power line was broken. In cases of power outages, the main threat to nuclear and radiation safety causes the fourth power unit that is now in a state of hot shutdown. The Russian occupation led to a violation of the operational regime and actually decommissioning of the largest nuclear power plant in Europe. Russians regularly create crises and crisis situations at the ZNPP. Each of such action threatens to turn into a large-scale accident and maybe even a catastrophe. The transfer of the Russians of the fourth power unit is into a state of hot shutdown, and this is especially dangerous and causes poignant concerns of ZNPP safety.
The aggressor continues to violate all 7 basic principles of nuclear safety defined by the International Atomic Energy Agency. In addition, due to the Russian illegal presence and criminal activities, there is a constant degradation of the company's systems and equipment. Petro Kotin, president of the Energoatom, at the Utility Working Conference.
In such conditions of the Russian military occupation, the International Atomic Agency simply does not control the processes that are actually taking place at ZNPP. The Russians planted mines on the territory of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant and also used it as a cover. The placement of the military equipment and personnel composition positions for the shelling controlled by Ukraine settlements on the right bank of Dnieper River. Regular Russian statements about the alleged Ukrainian provocations on ZNPP is nothing but poorly veiled blackmail by Moscow. To the international community, only the deoccupation of the Energoda and the creation of a perimeter security around the ZNPP under international supervision can firmly guarantee the avoidance of a catastrophic scenario on nuclear facility. Mark my words, dear world, that you need no expert opinion to understand that you cannot possibly plant mine at a nuclear power plant. If one still does, that means only one thing: the one is an enemy invader on your homeland, getting ready to provoke a disaster. Development of relations with African countries is one of the priorities of Ukrainian foreign policy. This is manifested in particular in regular visits to the region by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Dmytro Kuleba. African partners are informed in detail about the military aggression of the Russian Federation against Ukraine and its destructive consequences, as well as about peace initiatives of Ukraine. Only unconditionally withdrawal of Russian troops can be a base for long-lasting and just peace. The Russia-Africa summit in St. Petersburg was, to put it mildly, not a triumph of Moscow's foreign policy. Representation of African leaders was lower than expected, despite Putin's frank and somewhat even insulting attempts to feed them. African leaders have made it clear that they need no handouts from the Kremlin, but Russia to comply with its obligations within the framework of the Black Sea Grain Initiative. The thing is, supporting Ukraine does not mean being like pro-Western or anti-Western. It means a simple and logical devotion to principles of international law and nothing more, not acceptance of aggression, oppression and genocide. Acting otherwise means only one thing: being Russian. It was Henry Keane on UATV English, hoping to give you the hard truth in easy enough terms in our daily wrap-up today. Comment, like and subscribe. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Your opinion matters a lot to us. Stay safe and tune for more tomorrow. See you soon.